Hello and welcome to the Comics Pals Book Club. We are doing this live for the very first time, so welcome if you are with us. Let us know if you're with us. Let us know. We want to hear from you right up front. All the pals are here. We are going to be talking about, for the very first time in Pals history, the Long Halloween.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. Now, I want to do a quick intro. Of course, The Long Halloween, written by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, lettered by Richard Starkings with colors by Gregory Wright. It was released by DC Comics as Batman The Long Halloween from December of 96 to December of 97. I don't know why, but when I read that it was released as The Long Halloween, I was pretty like that surprised me that it wasn't like Legends of the Dark Knight
Oh,
XXX,
yeah.
Oh, huh.
Um and it ran for 13 issues, 13 chapters over 12 months. So that's a pretty good cadence there. Now, of course, Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale are a duo that probably most people who are actively engaged with comics, are aware of. They've worked together a lot of times. So their working history consists of Batman Haunted Night, which actually was 3 issues from Batman Legends of the Dark Knight Halloween special. That dropped from 93 to 95. So they worked with each other there. Then they worked with each other on
Huh.
Wolverine Gambit Victims in 95. I was shocked when I saw that one.
Tim Sale on a Wolverine book. That's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Um,
That's not the word I would use, but yeah,
no, you don't think that's cool?
Neat.
I've got opinions.
All right. Uh, Batman: The Long Halloween, of course, which we're here to talk about from 96 to 97. Superman for All Seasons in 98. Dark Victory, which is a sequel to The Long Halloween, was published between 99 and 2000. Then the color series that they did over at Marvel was Daredevil Yellow, 2001 to 2002. Spider-Man Blue, 03 to 04. Hulk Gray, 04 to 05. Or I'm sorry, 03 to 04. Catwoman When in Rome. They went back to DC for this, which is a sequel to Dark Victory. That was 2004 to 2005. And then they wrapped up their relationship with Captain America White, which was published from 2008 to 2015.
Oof.
A lot of issues in that one.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. So long time between those projects. But going back to this one real quick, this was only their second project together. For as good as it is, it was only their second one. And it came about, they thought they were done with DC. Archie Goodwin, who was the editor of this, convinced Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale to do the book by putting a splinter in Jeff Loeb's mind about the gangster characters that Frank Miller wrote in Batman Year One, like Falcone, and he was wondering what happened to them. So the combination of the opportunity to do a Batman book with the mob in it and set it in Year One, created by, of course, Frank Miller, who was one of Loeb's favorites, got him excited. And then from there, a whisper from Mark Waid about telling the story of Harvey Dent and his transition into Two-Face set Loeb off to the races. This is very much a Year Two story, supplanting the actual Year Two done by Mike Barr and Alan Davis and Todd McFarlane. It is a story examining the power of identity, the morality of justice, and what makes a just man, and the changing of the season of crime in Gotham. We are talking about The Long Halloween. So, all of you have read it multiple times.
Is that what we're
Oh,
supposed
yeah.
to do?
Yes, hopefully.
Marco watched the animated movie instead.
Only the animated movie.
Quick question. How many of you read this before The Dark Knight?
Oh, yeah.
I think it was before for me too. Yeah.
Like before the movie?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I thought you meant before I read like the Dark Knight series.
No,
books.
sorry, before The Dark Knight movie.
No.
You had
Big
it.
time. Yeah.
No.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. I did, but it was because of the relationship, I think.
Mm.
But it's absolutely incredible. And what struck me in this reread, as we get into talking about the book is how fast everything kicks off. Like, this is a book with propulsion. The first chapter is 48 pages, and it feels like half.
Yeah, it breezed through.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is 24, but it doesn't feel like you lose out on said pacing.
Yeah.
It's funny when I was like, oh, it's 13 issues, so this might be a slog. No, this is it goes at a quick pace, honestly.
It's crazy.
It went faster than I remember, and I remember it. I've always remember it being a buttery smooth read.
Yeah.
Good.
In just the first issue, we get all the primary players. We get introduced to the relationship between Gordon, between Harvey Dent and Batman. The Holiday Killer's introduced. The Roman's money is burned up, and Harvey's house is bombed. Like, all that is the first issue.
Yo, that's crazy. And it's funny that we're doing this live post the most recent edition of Pals Pulls, where one of our biggest complaints is just how slow an issue can go. So it's actually kind of refreshing that no, you can do it. It's an affirmation that this type of storytelling is effective, is fun, and communicates the things that you need without it feeling like you need all that space or fluff.
Yes.
And I think one of the benefits this book gets is that it was made to be 13 issues, you know? Like, it was already given that time by the editors who convinced them to do this, you know? One of the downsides of modern comics is, like, you don't know when it's going to be able to... You're not Tom King and Mitch Gerrits who get, 12 issues. So...
But that, I think that doesn't preclude people from, or writers from, plotting it out that way. I think you can plot an arc out with the expectation that from there maybe you'll continue, maybe not, because we hear from writers all the time, oh, I have this as an exit just in case, like if they get called off a book or something.
And I think this book works with the idea of the issue amazingly.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the way that it kind of paces things out.
It doesn't sacrifice the need to tell a story for the need to communicate the entire arc.
Yeah. It's actually an impressive achievement, I think, that this book is able to balance so many different things. There's so many topics, whether they're on the surface or just slightly underneath. So many characters, an unbelievable amount of characters. After this, of course, we would go on to get Hush by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee, and that was impressive in its own right. But all that stuff, I feel like, kind of started here, where you do that big book with all these different kinds of villains. I mean, it's really an impressive achievement.
I call a lot of Jeff Loeb's work in superheroes sort of comic books 101, because books like Hush and books like The Long Halloween tend to be sort of an overview, and even the Marvel Color series, they tend to be sort of an overview of a hero's career, and you hit the high notes of what's important, and what is driving them both. Loeb does this really well. What drives them both in the story, but also what drives them in the first place.
Yeah. And right up front too, I want to say Tim Sale, unbelievable.
I have thoughts on Tim Sale. Good thoughts, not bad. But
yeah. I have thoughts. I have mixed thoughts.
Well, so there's something about Tim Sale's art in my mind that just feels iconic. And there are several moments throughout this book where it's just like, wow, that is it. That is it. When Batman arrives and meets with Jim Gordon and Harvey, and he's just standing there with the bat symbol behind him and the cape and everything, that's it. That's money. Him punching Joker in the face. Like, there's so many moments in this book. Just the way that the double page splashes are used, even the single page splashes. It's big. It's a big, epic book, and Tim Sale's art really helps to drive that home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those one pagers, I love how he'll add a signature at the bottom because he knows that shit is like, oh, I can sell this page. Like it's so good that it's already an art statement, and I think that that's a really cool when you're. I really like the art. I think it's super stylistic, and while there's maybe issues with like technical issues with form and body position, I think because it's so just full of, oh, that's Tim Sale's art and that's the way he just likes to draw these things, it gets a pass for something, for at least for me, because I know that he's doing it with that in mind. Like he obviously knows what a human body should look like, but it's his human body that he wants to portray, and I think that's a differentiator.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
That's why. It's
Yeah,
the consistency
yes.
of it that makes it like,
Absolutely.
this is a choice.
Right.
It's not a JR doing that. Spider-Man with doing the stanky leg on that cover.
The stanky leg.
Yeah. But Batman does a lot of stanky things in this book, but it's because of the form of Tim Sale in it.
Yeah.
I believe that I heard Jeff Loeb say that one of the things he complimented Tim Sale on when he first met him was the way that he draws ugly characters. That he draws his characters are a bit ugly.
Yeah.
And I think what he's saying with that, and what I agree with in that statement, if it's what he meant, is that it adds character. These are not necessarily always perfect looking people, and their faces and their bodies are telling story.
Tim Sale's Joker, every time I read this book, Tim Sale's Joker goes higher and higher in my all-time favorite Joker designs. Just those teeth, man. That's
it's the hair for me. The little like swirls and mess.
But the teeth feel like what is it? The pit or no, Max from Image, is it?
The Max.
The Max, yeah. Like just those like protruding, almost has a bit of the mask too in them. That's where it's I feel like I can tell this book was made in the 90s, but in a good way.
It's also like the Grinch. Like I know Loeb distinctly like quotes from that and rips that off, but like so much of what Tim Sale does, especially with the villains, is they all look like some Grinch form, through the art and stuff.
Tim Curry, Dr. Seuss type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, I want to say before we jump into like my first topic that if you guys are watching this live and you want to be a part of the conversation, stick around, because when we reach the end of our portion, we're turning it over to you and we want to have a talk back. And we're prioritizing, super chats are open. So if you guys want to send your questions through that, that's super appreciated. Channel memberships are open as well. So all of our channel members, we appreciate you guys being here. If you want to be a part of that, click the join button that's there present on this video right now. And you can be a VI pal. So I believe in Gotham City.
Great opener. Great opener.
Yes, right. That is how Bruce opens the book. That's like the first line of dialogue. And then we see Jim Gordon say that again later on. And characters' beliefs, the things that they believe in, are very critical. I think every primary character at some point or another makes a statement on what it is that they believe. But the three primary characters whose belief in Gotham is sort of our POV are Jim Gordon, Batman, and Harvey Dent. And their relationship is at the core of this story. These are three men who are just sick and tired of the way that things go down in Gotham. They're sick of the stranglehold that gangland mafia, crime has on Gotham, and they intend to bust it up. But they can't trust anybody else. They're the only people that they can trust. Harvey's the DA, Jim Gordon is a cop, and Batman is a psychotic vigilante dressing up to beat up, criminals.
The scourge of the mentally ill homeless. Yeah.
And this is the team that's coming together to stop organized crime.
What I like about that is Gordon's the anchor. It's not bad. It's not Bruce. It's not Harvey. They're the characters and the major players, but Gordon's the one who's like in the middle that says, "Actually, I have somebody for you to meet. Oh, I have somebody for you to meet." Because I think he's the one that like helps to instigate and start this, where the other two are rightfully so fed up and trust Gordon to introduce them and have them trust each other. I think that's a really important moment in that first issue to allow them, because otherwise, like I don't know that Harvey would necessarily agree um with Batman out the gate. I think he'd have to like really figure out whether or not he was altruistic. Bruce was a little skeptical of Harvey, and so they needed somebody that they both trusted to bring them together, to unite the forces.
That's interesting because I feel like Bruce is very trusting of Harvey.
I think he likes his ideals, but I don't know if he's like, is he willing to take the steps that they need to take until they start to.
I always felt like Bruce viewed Harvey as the idealistic version of Gotham that he was striving for.
Yes.
He's
Gotham
like, this is
white
my
knight.
replacement, really.
Yes.
And this guy's doing it right. And having like Jim and Batman are very set in their ways and what they do, and they can't really move out of it because they are archetypal. Whereas Harvey now kind of gets to play around a bit and seeing the other two react to how he evolves, however you want to put it, is probably. I mean, it's really the main driving factor throughout the book. But I think it's great, especially post year one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what interests me a lot is that I actually feel like Bruce is a synthesis of Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
They're on opposite sides of the spectrum, and Batman is the one that's in the middle because Jim is by the book 100%. Everything has to be done by the law. Harvey doesn't feel that way. He feels like the ends justify the means. And also, if you're doing something that's illegal, but you're doing it against a criminal, it's okay. Batman says in his narration pretty early when Jim tells him we have to follow the law, he says, my mission is to be uncompromising, but I'll follow along for now. So he's more inclined in his mind to be like Harvey. He literally is. He commits crimes.
His being is a crime.
Exactly. His very existence is a crime. But what I think makes it so interesting is that Batman doesn't accept Harvey's inclinations toward thinking about doing illegal things. But I don't think it's because they're illegal. I think it's because Batman's sense of justice exists beyond the law, and it includes honor. And so, for example, when Harvey suggests that they could steal the money before they burn it, Batman says no. And it's not because it's illegal that he says no. It's because it's not an honorable thing to do that he says no.
Harvey doesn't have that sense because he's a lawyer.
So lawyers are people too, Kale.
Bad people.
I argue that Harvey is not. It's not that he's not honorable, it's that he's masking his lack of honor. And he's almost waiting for someone to say, yeah, let's do that. Like if Batman was like, yeah, we should take that money, I think he might do it.
Yeah, there were several times, especially with Gordon, that he he floated the idea of offing some people or whatever. And Gordon was like, absolutely not. That's not what we're doing.
I also think it's because Batman views Harvey as like an ideal. In any way he can help mold that in a way as well too. He's going to take it.
Yeah, it is if we were two other guys, but I think if you read that, I don't think you're meant to read it divorcing it from the two individuals that are having the conversation. Harvey is implying that they could get rich off of this.
if they didn't have those morals, those values.
Right. Exactly. But I contend if Batman said, "Yeah, let's get this money," that Harvey would say okay. And I think that's why Batman admonishes him for saying that. Because he sees, and he's not the only person, and this is the only time where Harvey's honor is questioned. As Kale pointed out, that's a problem that Gordon has with him too. So I'm here to say I don't think that Harvey is an honorable person if the chips are down. But go ahead.
Sorry, like he needs to get pushed to that. I would argue he needs to get pushed to that threshold, but he would be willing to cross a line as opposed to Gordon, where he can get pushed to it, but the line is always the limit. It will never be exceeded. Where
For Gordon,
right? For Gordon, right.
I think that's what I was saying.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. Yeah, I'm agreeing.
Yeah. So, but in that, yeah, Jim Gordon is the one that is completely incorruptible. If you agree that the law represents what is correct, because he's the only one that won't step outside of the law. And I love that this book forces you to ask that, because Batman steps out of the law 100% of the time. Jim Gordon never does. Harvey wants to. And then once he gets turned into Two-Face, once he has that push that Marco mentioned before, it's all fair game now. And I don't read this book, and I'm curious if you guys think this. I don't read this as saying that Harvey is now lost some of his lost his mind a little bit. I don't think that he is now suffering from mental illness. I think that he makes a decision that he's not going to play by the rules anymore, because when he did, it got his house burned, exploded, and his face rotted with acid.
Yeah, and I think even even before he's Two-Face, like I think all of the things he thinks, like even, taking some of the money, I think, you use the word admonish, Batman admonishes him. I feel like that's too strong. Like I read it as Batman's like, that's a totally human response, but we can't do that. Like I feel like both Gordon and Batman are like there's a level where you're right, but it's a human thought. Get it out of your head.
Okay. I think that triumvirate relationship is so, like, the fact that we've seen it explored in the Dark Knight and it brought light to this. It's all right here. This is incredible stuff. And I love the way that Loeb is playing with identity here and playing with morality and justice. That's always at the core of Batman stories, but I think it comes out more when you're talking about Two-Face, because he's lived in both worlds. And because, like in this book, he does represent an aspect of Batman's character.
And to bring it back to what you mentioned, Sean, the whole I believe in Gotham thing that, starts the book. And then Gotham essentially being the one that betrays Bruce and is what eventually does break down Harvey and turn him into Two-Face. It's the collective weight of everything that's wrong with Gotham turns the shining beacon of Harvey Dent into Two-Face. And there's that whole, I guess, turn for him. It's just it's emblematic of what Gotham can do to people, and almost how fruitless Batman's, I guess, crusade is.
That's an interesting point. A
little cynical, but
well, in a way it is, and in a way it isn't. So, I want to shift gears, because another thing that this book is, so this is very much a year 2 book.
Mhm.
And in year one, the only villains are regular criminals and corrupt cops. This book, The Long Halloween, shows us the changing seasons, and one of the seasons that's changing is crime. Because the book is showing us the end of organized crime as a force in Gotham. Because Batman's ability to pursue criminals outside of the boundaries of the law is so potent, and the fact that he doesn't have a public persona to exploit means that the organized criminals are impotent against him. He is their apex predator. They cannot deal with him and what he represents.
It's interesting.
And their reaction to try and deal with him is hiring freaks, really, in all the rogues gallery, and just using the issues to introduce essentially almost like Monster of a Week, Buffy style, where each issue was like, all right, this one, I always forget Poison Ivy's in this book every time I read it, and it's like another surprise for me. I'm like, oh yeah, she's in this. But showing how like this really is year two. The mob doesn't really do anything anymore. It's these freaks and these villains that are really the control point of Gotham. And there's that one bit where Gordon and Batman are in Arkham, and Gordon says something like, "There's a lot more people in here now that you started," and then Batman's like, "Are you implying that I'm the cause of all this?" And then they drop it. But I think it's just like a great bit there that it's just it's dropped perfectly instead of them going too far with that idea, because I don't think that's something Gordon ever wants to explicitly state.
And I think to that, it even ties into the dynamic with Dent, where like had Batman not been brought in, I don't think Dent would have gotten to the point where he was okay with letting loose, like being more bendable with some of those rules. And one of the questions that I thought of was like had Batman not done this, he'd probably continue to be the DA. He'd get harassed maybe to a lesser degree because he wasn't getting as close, because that crime fighting would not have been as effective. But Batman's involvement leads and lends to Dent becoming Two-Face, both in, or actually largely in ideology, I would say. Like, he has his morals, but Batman being there and being above the law, and like even in the first issue, getting access to the logs, the ledger, like that would not have been accessible otherwise. That gives and maybe emboldens Dent to some degree, and I wonder to what degree Batman's inclusion further emboldened him until ultimately he snapped and made that decision to actually, I'm going to go down this path.
Dent's a microcosm of Gotham. It's blue collar into a full on villain, a comic book villain, and I like how that growth is really just reflected in Gotham, behind the scenes.
I think that Den is on the path to Two-Face either way. And I have always, Two-Face is my favorite DC character. And the tragedy of Two-Face is that he's a good guy, ultimately, who is flawed, that just can't handle what is happening. And that's very normal. He's a normal guy. And Gotham, it fucking sucks.
Well, okay.
And so
I posit then, Sean, without Batman and without villains changing the landscape of things, because I'd argue if Batman didn't exist, neither would the Rogues Gallery. So, do you still feel like if Batman wasn't around, Two-Face would still exist?
I think if Two-Face is a manifestation of the dark aspect of Harvey's personality, which theoretically exists in every living person to some degree, then yes, I think Two-Face would still exist.
But I think he either would exist in Dent's corruption or his death.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't manifest with him having half his face burned, but the characteristics of Two-Face exist in Harvey.
I mean, as we see in this, Harvey was doing stuff behind the scenes, even before he was Two-Face.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like that like it's not wrong to have flaws. What happens to Harvey is tragic in my mind because he gets pushed beyond what he can handle. And that's a human failing, but it's not a character flaw. It's just what happened to him. I think Jim Gordon just doesn't have that hole. But is he a better human being because he doesn't? You know, I don't think Harvey chooses to be this way.
I would say Jim has that hole. It's just with his family, not necessarily himself. But this book doesn't tackle that part of it.
I meant the hole that welcomes in Two-Face.
Fair.
And it's also not Jim Gordon's face that gets burned with acid.
But I don't think it changes Gordon, to your point, like on the characteristics. I don't think it'll change Gordon's ultimate person, who he is and identifies as opposed to Dent, because he already has some of those inclinations.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it also just isn't it just isn't Jim Gordon's face that gets burned.
Sure, yeah.
Harvey's the one that suffers the most for the actions that the three of them agreed to take.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that he's also the one that falls the furthest away from who he was at the beginning. Even though those negative characteristics were there.
Sure.
Speaking of the villains, though, because we talked about how Supercrime is introduced, throughout the Long Halloween, we get a lot. We get Joker, Poison Ivy, Mad Hatter, Solomon Grundy, Catwoman, Scarecrow, and the Riddler. Did I miss any? That's 7.
Give me 3 more.
You said Mad Hatter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I lost track.
I think it's those 7. If I missed any, feel free to let me know. And yeah, they're running amok, and it's fun to watch. To watch the way that Batman interacts with them. I read this feeling like Batman has almost more disdain for organized mob crime than he does the new super crime that erupted. Like, he's particularly pissed about organized crime.
Well, I think that's because that's the direct tie to what happened to his parents.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a more personal thing there. Meanwhile, he's just in love with the Joker. That's a separate thesis. We won't talk about that.
How do you guys feel about the villain's use here?
Great.
I think it's fun that each issue is basically an exploration of a different villain. I sort of the way the plot breaks out, like Poison Ivy takes over Bruce Wayne, over 2 issues, and then Catwoman comes to his rescue, et cetera, et cetera. So theoretically, Gotham was without Batman for a month. That's crazy.
I didn't consider that.
And I think that happens. Oh yeah, because he goes to jail on Mother's Day, and he's released around Father's Day too.
Right.
It's a wild Memorial Day weekend, that's for sure.
I don't know. That really struck me this time. It was just like this is like 3 months without Batman, and all these people are just running around. This is bad news.
Right. And the book is not overly concerned with that, I feel like.
No.
But that is still a good point, and I wish it was a little more concerned with that.
Yeah. And I think it's just, it's part of the structure of the theme, which is fine. It was one of the couple of things that had me going, wait a second.
Poison Ivy goes on to take over or mind control Superman in Hush.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Loeb kind of repeats himself with certain things, but I enjoyed that part here because that helps to further cement the idea that the mob is just impotent now. They can't get their money laundered. They cannot get it into the bank. So they need to use Poison Ivy to help them convince Bruce through mind control to allow that to happen. But without that, they can't do anything. And they get all their money burned up. It's almost fun reading this and watching how crappy the mob are and how Batman just stomps all over them.
And how desperate they become too. And then they start turning on each other. It's just, they're not equipped for what Gotham's becoming.
Well, and I wasn't sure where to bring this up, and maybe it's not here, but have you guys all seen it? I know Tyler has. Have you guys seen the Godfather?
I actually haven't.
Not completely.
Is it that one page where he's cutting tomatoes?
Dog, it's the whole book.
Yeah.
Yes.
This whole book is the Godfather, but with Batman.
There's direct lines, right? You Can Act Like a Man is from The Godfather, I think, and then there was one other one that I caught. Having not seen the movie, I just haven't noticed.
It's the opener. It's Falcone. It's Alberto.
Yeah.
Ending up being a Holiday. Like there's so much Godfather in this book that it actually drove me a little bit crazy.
Well, one of the reasons why Loeb agreed to do the project was because he was turned on by the idea of getting to do a gangster story, which was all the rage, in the 80s and whatnot. So that makes sense. Now, I really wanted to talk about identity and the power of masks, because I think that there's a lot of stuff in this book that's talking about that. And I never really heard this when hearing The Long Halloween discussed. So in this book, I feel like the characters that have an identity that is not forward all have a significant advantage over the ones that do. So, for example, one of the reasons why the mob is so impotent is because they're easy to catch. If it wasn't for the fact that they have the judges and they have, you got to catch me doing a crime specifically, if it wasn't for the fact that they know how to warp the law to their favor, they would get caught just like every other petty villain. But because Batman doesn't care about the law, he cares about justice, he can snatch them up easily. He knows who they are and he can get them. Batman cannot solve the crime of the holiday murders. No one can. Because the person who it is has a secret identity. Even at the end of the book, by the end, when everything is said and done, only one person, maybe you could argue two, know who the other holiday killer was. Because yes, we know Alberto is captured and he's caught because Batman puts on another disguise to catch him. But Gilda is never caught.
Yeah.
Calendar Man knows. Maybe Harvey knows, but that's it.
Okay, so this is where the ending, I think, comes up, because I don't know where to bring up the ending, because Harvey's the other holiday killer.
No.
There are 3 holiday killers.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So the same way that it's Batman,
right,
Jim, and Harvey.
Right. Okay.
It's Gilda, Alberto, and Two-Face. So Two-Face is a part of both of those groups of 3, or Harvey Two-Face, I guess.
Right.
Because Harvey kills on a holiday.
Right. So technically, there were only who did the murders prior to leading up to whoever Harvey kills.
Yes.
Right.
I do have a question on that, actually, because there is a little bit of debate on the ending, because Gilda does say outright that Harvey took over after New Year's for her killings, because the holiday.
What she believes.
Yeah, because there was also that one shot that came out 2 years ago, that continued this with Jeff Loeb himself.
Well,
yeah, which that's I don't know if that's canon. I don't know what it is, but
just yeah.
And so with the idea of the holiday killer being Gilda and Harvey's child is a thing, and that even though Harvey wasn't Two-Face, he was still doing those killings post New Year's Day, going all the way up to the second Halloween. And just doing that helped drive him to becoming Two-Face as well. Because there was the hat that she found, which was the one he would have ditched when he left the boat. Like, there was a silhouette of the holiday killer leaving the boat on like a little speedboat there.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was Harvey. But then is it Alberto? I like the obtuse nature of the ending, because every time I read this book, I'm like, well, you know.
I found it kind of messy. I don't like, I think it works for what it's doing, and it wraps it up fairly neatly. With Alberto in jail, Harvey's Two-Face now, and Gilda, nobody knows about. But I think for the reader, I feel like the knots aren't clear enough.
I would agree, because there's Calendar Man somehow knows out the gate there are two, seemingly prior to there being two. Like he continues to reference she and he, and he'll flip back and forth between those things. I think that was one of the pieces that would confuse me. And then once I got to the end, I'm like, okay, that's right. That's why he was using she. But I think there wouldn't have been something to dictate that, I think, or at the very least, maybe that needed to be a bit more obvious to help distinguish that there are two and we need to be looking for two, and to get us to think about those things. Because I think at the end, it was just kind of, it felt out of convenience that Gilda was the one who started and Alberto kept going, even though Alberto was one of the victims. It did feel a little messy, at least on the reread.
I've never found this to be messy. I think the lack of clarity is part of the point. I think that the story is about identity, and it is about masks. And the same way that no one can say who Batman is, and there's a lot of speculation about that. Jim says he thought Harvey was Batman. No one exactly knows who Holiday was. Just the same way that we're talking about how there could have been 3 murders, there could be 3 people as Batman. Who would know the difference? Even at some point, Harvey says to Batman, it must be really hard for you to live 2 lives, if you even live 2 lives, in reference to the idea that he might not have another persona, that Batman might be all that there is. And so the questions around the identity and the knowledge of who a person is are as tied to Batman as they are the Holiday Killer. And we, the reader, know about Batman, but no one will ultimately know about Holiday. Not even us. Although we get to know something in that case that no one else knows, which is that Gilda was doing.
And there's also, like, storyline-wise, there's a clear shift in motive after New Year's Day, too. That everything post New Year's Day is, like, in the benefit of the... I always forget which family Alberto's part of.
Falcons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Falcons narrowly...
What the fuck?
OMAC is activated.
Do it again.
But even at some point, they're convinced that it is Harvey. They're convinced that it's Bruce Wayne. The mystery goes a lot of different places, and ultimately there really can't be a concrete answer.
I think that part's fun, like playing the guessing game alongside everybody, because there are definitely moments where even as the reader, you're like, shit, is it Harvey? Did he already like turn, and his then devolvement into Harvey or into Two-Face is just an extension? Like there's a lot there for at least for the mystery aspect of it, and how it plays with what you know about the characters. So I think from that perspective, it's effective. it's effective in building suspense, and also how it addresses and acknowledges the individual characteristics of each of our characters.
I also like how this came out in '96, right? The book.
Yeah.
'95 was when Usual Suspects came out. So like that whole idea of like whodunit at the time is great, with like a surprise twist at the end. But like one of my favorite bits in the whole story is the April issue with the Riddler. Like even the Riddler, who's supposed to be the smartest guy in Gotham, is stumped by this, you know, where he becomes a joke quite literally by the end of that issue.
Oh, doesn't he technically know who it is?
I think he has, or either knows enough to not say anything,
Right.
or is so involved in it that he can't pinpoint it.
Yeah, I don't remember if he ultimately knows or not. I think that's left hanging up in the air.
Yeah, he like doesn't mention it, but he's there and he's present for the moment. But
Jeff Loeb talked about how, in relationship to the ending, he actually had his editor read the book without knowing, or read the scripts without knowing who Holiday would be, because he wanted to see if the twist would work at the end if you were the reader and you didn't know who Holiday was until the end. And he said that, in this case, it's not like, oh, hey, it was a ghost that did it. That you can tell your audience, hey, this character came back from the dead, allegedly. You thought you saw them dead, but they weren't really dead. Or it was this character that you didn't suspect, but they really were the ones that did it. You can get away with that. But what you can't get away with is saying, oh, this was a ghost, or this was something outside of what the story has established and set up. So I think from that standpoint, even though we don't ultimately know every single thing, there's nothing here that feels out of left field or out of the blue. It all feels within the boundaries of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So one thing that kind of bugs me on reread is that Harvey is introduced as Two-Face, but nothing really happens with that. Like, he kills some people, he says, all right, take me to jail, and then that's that. We don't really get to see how that resolves until Dark Victory, which is also fantastic. But I kind of wish that this had a more of a closed ending.
With Harvey or with Two-Face specifically?
Yeah. Where he's defeated versus not, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it depends on, what you mean by defeated, because he does have his tragic fall, and he pays for it. He doesn't get knocked out, but he goes to jail,
By choice.
Sure. But that shows that, Harvey's still in there.
And I also think,
which makes it more tragic.
And I think that bit where he kind of turns himself in, and there's that panel with the three of them. It's like looking from underneath them, just to show how different the dynamic is now. And I think that Harvey kind of going out, even like Two-Face going out with a whimper, really, is almost more impactful than if he just went full villain and Batman had to take him down.
Throw a bunch of coins in the air for him to fall down a lighthouse.
I love Batman Forever, okay?
But I don't think he went out. And I think he was vindicated. He killed Falcone, and then like, what else does he need? That was, he was trying to put him away by the book for Gordon, but he got his comeuppance, and I think that's what Two-Face unlocked for Dent. Dent wasn't maybe going to kill him outright to stop his reign of terror and crime, but Two-Face will, and he'll help him get to that end. So like at that point, it's like, yeah, like I did what I set out to do from the start, which was to stop Falcone. It just wasn't the way that I initially wanted to. So for me, getting arrested made sense. He's just like, I did the thing. Hey, that's it. And it wasn't by the way we agreed. Lock me up. Take the L by taking the W.
That's fair. Jim Gordon says that when Batman asks him, was it worth it? Jim Gordon says, do you mean that Gotham is safer or whatever? And he says, in that sense, yes. Was it worth the price? We'll see. And I actually don't agree with Jim Gordon, because while, yes, organized crime, the mob is pretty much stomped out by the end, all the major players are dead, that was only supplanted by supercrime. So I don't really feel like Gotham is any safer at all. I mean, it's literally safer in the sense that Falcone is gone and all those people are gone. But the Joker's going to do worse.
I mean, we'll see if he does.
What do you mean we'll see if he does?
Like that. I feel like that's Jim's gamble. Is we'll see. Like we stopped one crime, and we say that we saved a day. I don't think so, but maybe in not his lifetime, not in Bruce's lifetime, and not in Joker's lifetime, maybe they did something small that affected the longevity of Gotham. Gotham doesn't measure its life in decades; it measures it in centuries.
Nah, they took an L.
That was a nice soliloquy, Marco, but I mean, Jim Gordon says we're safer, not in a century, but in now, and that's just not true.
What he says is, if you're asking me, did the good guys win? Yes, the good guys won. But was it worth it? I don't know, and won't for a very long time.
I guess they accomplished their stated goal of stopping the mob.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think that is. I don't know that that's the same thing as winning in this case.
No, and I think that's what Gordon is also saying with his aside as Batman leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Was it worth it? I don't know, and I'm not going to know for a very long time.
Until year 3.
Yeah, of course.
So you win a battle, potentially lose the war.
Right.
I also think Dark Victory kind of is a little bit more like it ends in a way. If I haven't read it in years, but I'm pretty sure
I've never read it. I don't even know what it's about, honestly.
Oh,
you should do that. You should definitely read that.
I almost read it right after this.
Yeah, I was going to it.
But it's pretty hopeful.
Yeah.
But we see that things do in fact kind of, get bad again. So yeah, it is kind of the end of an era of a certain kind of crime in Gotham.
Yeah, and I think you're obviously us looking at it as like, yes, obviously they things are gonna get worse. But I think and you could argue this is sort of the problem with Batman, is that this, his one solution is to beat these bad guys up and lock them up. And that's it. Like, really, that's all he can do. Mm-hmm. And so each time he does it, and don't think about this too hard. Each time he does it, his thing is, okay, move on to the next one. They're locked up, they're put away. That's it. And that's his solution. His idea is that they're done. They're done with this. Eventually, they'll all be locked up and I can go home. Mm-hmm. So, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Batman and Gordon can foresee what comes.
Fair.
Which is funny. I agree with you, but it's funny because that shot of all the villains in Falcone's office That paints a dark picture of their future. But Batman stops them then. So
And even the Joker trying to fly a plane into, Gotham City on New Year's Day or whatever. Like,
yeah, it's crazy as hell.
Wacky.
Looking like Freaky Fred from Courage the Cowardly Dog too.
Oh.
And I feel, this was a question I wanted to ask you guys. Do you guys think that Alberto was lying? Do you think that he was making up being Holiday in order to get his father's attention or whatever, or to be a part of this club? Or do you think that he was really doing these murders?
I think that theory works. Except, how do you explain the fake death? I think the whole fake death of Alberto, that's where it gets murky about who did what. Because it could be Harvey that, thought he killed Alberto or whatever. And then did all those killings. Or it could have been Alberto taking over the mantle and then doing the killings to, I guess, both evolve as a criminal, probably seeing from the background that, like the way my dad's doing it isn't working anymore. I have to become a mask, and then becoming that. Or he was just taking credit. Yeah. I think that's where it's like interpretation a bit.
I think it's both.
Which?
Both. He did one or two with the idea of, I'm going to show my dad I'm better than this. It's, the same story again as The Godfather. Al Pacino coming up through the ranks to do, to become the Godfather. And I think he also takes credit for what Harvey and Gilda do.
Interesting. I think he gets inspired. I think initially he's shut down. He wants to participate, but as he continually gets shut down, he sees this person take up a mantle or similar to Calendar Man, gets a gimmick, sees one or two of the killings, then decides, wait, if I fake my death as a victim, I can do this in the background, free of any kind of purview, and then I'm gonna pop up and be like, look, I was the one who did these things. I think he got inspired first with Gilda doing all the killings, and then he picked it up.
I've actually never believed that Harvey was doing any of the killings.
I agree with that.
I have only ever believed it was Gilda first, and then Alberto joined on. I feel like that's supported. I think Alberto, the same way that Harvey turning into Two-Face is speaking to the, the power of masks and identity. Two-Face is a supervillain, but he's not the same thing as like the Joker or Poison Ivy or whoever. They have whoever they are. Two-Face is always that, and he cannot hide that. He's Two-Face and Harvey at the same time. I think that he represents that, and Alberto is also representing the changing seasons. He goes from being a mob, well, he's not even a mobster, but a wannabe mobster to a supervillain. If by supervillain we mean a villain who uses a masked identity to commit crime. Either way, I love the fact that you can speculate about the ending. I think that gives it a little bit of longevity.
Yeah. The ability to interpret.
Yeah. So let's talk about Tim Sale's art a little bit more, because I know that it's not unanimous here that we all agree that it was great. At least it seems like Kale has an alternative perspective.
I think it's great. I have problems with it. Like, I don't think you get to be Tim Sale and it not be great. But I'll say it. I hate his Batman.
Wow.
What?
I really don't like the way he draws Batman.
Is the way the eyes are too close to the nose, like they're almost parallel?
It's the round mouth. It's like the bad Dark Knight action figures.
The bodega ones.
Well, just the ones that, they came out and they couldn't quite get the mouth right, so it was always a circle. That just drives me nuts.
See, I love Tim Sale's art in this. I think the way Tim Sale kind of uses shadows and black as negative space is insane. Like that is the form of everything in the book. It is shaped by shadow. You get it. I mean, it's emblematic with the first page and the final page. Bruce and Gilda. And typically you would have actual negative space or like white space or something like that. This book is not that. It's the color is filled in to then fill in that negative space that the black kind of gives out in it. It's gorgeous. Who was the colorist? Sean, do you have that on you?
Gregory Wright.
Gregory Wright. Yes.
I just flipped back to look at that too. Have you guys seen the artist edition, the black and white?
Oh no.
I haven't either.
Oh, okay.
That'd be wild.
I was asking because it's been out a while, so I didn't know. And you guys are all.
I wonder if that would take away from the actual purposeful black and white pages.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think the black and white kill pages stick out so much more because they're in black and white.
They're more gray.
Sure, but the fact that like sometimes there will be like the calling card or whatever for the holiday in there that's in color. I wonder if that would just take away from the storytelling of it all if it's all in black and white.
This is a beefy ass Batman.
Word.
My man is meaty.
He's got abs on his arms. Like
I love that version of Batman. I don't know how other people feel about it. It's very 90s, I guess, but he's just super big. And seeing him beating the shit out of these mobsters, I got satisfaction when I saw him like punch them or, anything of that nature. Just this big tank of a man running around Gotham, mowing everybody down.
I guess I like my Batman a little more athletic as opposed to, tanky.
I do too. I just happen to feel that it fits this story that he be such a Hulk because he is omnipotent in this book. Like there's nothing stopping Batman at
his
any
force
time.
of nature.
Yeah.
The panels where it's just his fist going into, like that's incredible.
Yeah. I think Batman is actually used interestingly in this book because to me, he's a similar force of nature to the Holiday Killer. Like the Holiday Killer is not stoppable until their mission is complete. Batman is not stoppable until the mission is complete. Neither one of them have exploitable identities. I just think Batman's just a more physical. He just does his thing more physically, which is why he's huge. Whereas Holiday is a sleek, noirish killer.
It's funny, like in my book, where the crease is the most is the Batman Catwoman fight, which I think really shows off Tim Sale's Batman. Like, I think it's always interesting how artists decide to do Batman's cape. And there's that one page, and if you're listening to this, apologies, but there's that one page where Batman's cape is just dragging on the floor as he's approaching Catwoman, and the crime people are barging in on the door. It's just real good Batman comics.
For me, it's the thin lines. There are a lot of moments where the blacks can be thick, or the blacks can be a bit more prominent in the actual inking in the line, but then there are moments on the body that help to provide shape and figure, and those are like smaller gray lines within the arms, the muscles. So I appreciate the use of that because all of this stuff, and I can only imagine what that black and white book looks like, is just a collection and series of interconnecting or just open lines. because of the use of color, or rather because of the heavy use of shadow. You don't actually need to fill things in or define things because they're gonna get colored in with a pretty. There's some tones, but I think otherwise it's pretty flat coloring overall. So why do you need to detail if you're going to get it when you combine the heavy ink with a thinner gray and just a flat color? It's incredible use of just space.
It's almost like printmaking in a way.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
Where you have to like layer things in the composition of it all.
I love it, man. It's so good. And to the earlier pieces on like the shape, that I think is the harder part to swallow, because I know his head should not be tilting that way. I know his arms should not be angled in a certain direction, but you kind of swallow it because it's like, well, damn, it fits what he's going for at large, even if in that moment. Stop, Tyler. I'm gonna walk right by it, but you and it works for the composition at large, but when you break down the individual components, it feels like you're stitching together certain pieces because it's so disconnected because of those inks.
It really is a beautiful comic, and I want to say we actually lost Tim Sale. Tim Sale did pass last year on my birthday, actually, June 16th, which is terrible. I didn't realize that.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, right. An absolutely incredible artist who I think most people would probably say did his best work with Jeff Loeb. And one of the things that Jeff Loeb recently did an interview on Word Balloon with John Ciantris, and one of the things that was very evident from that interview was how much Jeff Loeb really loved Tim Sale and just how good of a working relationship they had. Their working relationship was so good that when they did their initial project together, the Legends of the Dark Knight series, they would lay the whole book out on the phone. And so when it came time for the editor to say, like, okay, so where's the script? Jeff Loeb was like, I don't have a script. We worked on it on the phone. There's no script. He drew it, he laid it out, and then I added the words, and that was it. And he said, well, I can't pay you. If there's no script, you can't get paid. And so they would lay it out on the phone, and then Jeff would have to go and like write, close up on Batman, even though it was already drawn and everything else, just so that he could get paid.
Wild.
Yeah, but their relationship was incredible. Tim only wanted to draw certain things, and he was lucky enough to be in a position to be choosy. And Jeff and him, they chose projects that they mutually loved, and they were able to have a very successful career together. I think this is my favorite Tim Sale book visually.
Ooh.
This is Spider-Man Blue. They're both up there for me.
I think visually it's probably this and Dark Victory. Yeah.
I've only read the two.
Batman aside.
So it'd be this. Ooh, I'd have to look back at Blue, actually. Damn, I don't know.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Damn, I don't actually know. Never mind. I rescind my comment.
I mean, there's also Superman for All Seasons, which is some great Sale.
Yeah. I feel like there's more variety in this. I feel like he's really flexing some stuff here.
Flexing Batman for sure.
Whereas with Blue and All Seasons, I don't feel like, especially with the villains and stuff, I feel like there's a lot more variety here than there is with Blue and All Seasons.
Did you guys ever check out the Long Halloween follow-up?
Special?
Yeah, it was like right. Sean, you're muted, I think.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. We reviewed it.
Oh, this is pre-me. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were still good then.
In 21?
I think so, yeah.
Most recent thing, chapter 14 or whatever?
Yeah.
He
You still had it,
Age had done some stuff.
sure.
Yes.
But there are some like panels in that too of like Calendar Man that's just like exactly why I like Long Halloween. It's just like in shadow, but like you see this bald-headed weirdo. Just and Kelly, you really should have shaved your head to really stick to the costume.
I would rather die. I will become Two-Face before I shave my head. Do you understand me?
Dude, I'd pay to see that.
You will pay out the ass to see that. Do you understand? It will not happen. You can't afford it.
So I'm on I have the Infinite app up and I opened the issue just to remind myself what the follow-up one looked like. It's a lot more cartoony, definitely thicker lines, not of the same quality or caliber.
It's 30 years ago, so like it's still good. You know, it still quintessentially was Tim Sale.
Yeah. And this follow-up is quintessentially an aged Tim Sale because not the same thing.
I remember enjoying it. Quite frankly, I don't really remember what happened too much, but there was a conversation at that time about whether or not it was necessary and whether or not it would, sully the legacy of the Long Halloween. And the only thing I know for sure is that I did not feel that it did that.
It felt like there was supposed to be more. Is sort of the vibe I got from it.
There was.
Okay, well, I was right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we lost Tim.
Yeah. So it's hard to say. It's not to say that it didn't matter, that it shouldn't have been made or whatever, but it couldn't have added anything else because we didn't get the rest of it.
Yeah.
Wait, it turns out I was on that show.
I was about to say, I'm like, hold on a second, that feels recent.
It was we reviewed that and Inferno #2.
Okay.
Well then, yeah, there you go. That is right in the early days of Tyler. So that's it. That's the Long Halloween. An incredible book. I think for me, I was struck most on this reread by two things. One was all the themes that I never caught before. All the good stuff that Loeb was doing under the hood that it just never really crossed my mind. I really tried to read this close. And I got a lot out of it. And it's even more elevated now for me as a book than it was before. Even when we did the top 5, I think, what did I rank it at? I think I don't even remember what I ranked it as. Oh, I ranked it as number 2. So there you go. I'm not too far out of the pocket. But it really is absolutely incredible. And so I was struck by that. Just a stunningly good comic. The other thing I was struck by is the amount of things that are in here that were also in the Dark Knight film and the Batman, like one-to-one stuff, the origins of certain things, like the burning of the money, the freaks, referring to Batman and Joker as freaks in the movie comes from here. So many things.
Do you prefer Joker's disfiguring in this or Dark Knight?
Well, I think the one in Dark Knight is thematically appropriate. I don't know if that's what I want out of comic book Joker, but I think that one makes sense for the movie.
Put a smile on my face, so.
Oh, sorry, I meant Two-Face, not Joker. Did I say Joker?
Oh, Two-Face.
Yeah, you
the
said
acid
Joker.
versus the oil. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like the comic book version more. I think the one from the movie is cool and it gives them the double cross moment with Joker, but I think the one from the comic is narratively cleaner. And I think it's squarely focused on Harvey.
Yeah.
I actually, and I know you bag on it, but I actually don't mind Two-Face's origin as shown in Batman Forever.
That was fine. I don't bag on that. I thought that was good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like that would have been 95. This is 96. So It's very similar.
So go ahead, Kill.
I was going to say, I actually didn't like it as much this time around.
Oh,
I find this read, like I said, buttery smooth. And I had to put it down for a few minutes. I look at my phone and I just like it bugged me this time. And I'm not sure what it was, but I just couldn't get into it the way I have before. So yeah, I don't know.
You think it's the book or your ability to read? Like, I don't mean that like.
I am a
You know what I mean?
millennial. Admittedly, I was on Instagram, so like,
Yeah.
you know, it's
I was
it's
probably
going.
sending you stuff at the same time.
My ability to read is going. You're right.
Because I've noticed that personally with myself. It's a little harder to read.
But yeah, and I just like this connection to The Godfather. Like, I just kept looking for it and kept putting it together, and it
Felt it.
really took me out of it this time.
That doesn't change my opinion on it. Still, where I put it, 3, 4, or something.
still decent.
Still decent.
It's okay, yeah.
Fine book.
Still better than year 1.
See, I still think year one's better because I like how small year one is in comparison to this. And also Mazzucchelli is like just a god, goat level stuff. But this is still like number 2 for me. Yeah, I still really, really love this book.
Well, we want to hear from you all. So we promised that once our presentation was over, that we wanted to talk back with you guys. And so that's the moment is now. We want to hear what you guys have to say. We want to hear, your thoughts on the book, questions that you have for us about our thoughts on the book, or, lingering questions that you have that you want us to answer. Anything like that, we're open to now. So if you guys want to run through the chat, if you saw any comments that are worth plucking out that would meaningfully add something.
Yeah,
I have one.
Yeah, okay, go first.
Because we didn't talk about this. Roboters in the chat says was wanting to ask how you feel about Selena being extremely tied to the Falcone family. That for all intents is in continuity.
So she was just watching out. Like, she was basically scouting, right? Like, that was her thing and would only interfere with Batman.
Well, Batman caught her every time. Yeah. There's more revealed in Dark Victory for sure.
Okay.
And further explored in When in Rome.
Yeah.
Because that was a connection that I didn't quite understand how or why it kept popping up, because she would just be there and I would just assume, oh, she's just trying to take some money.
Is this tied into what happens with Catwoman and the Batman? Is that a similar dynamic?
It's not 1-to-1.
Okay.
If I recall correctly.
I've not read the 2 follow-ups to this, so this is a blind spot for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Boy, should we talk about it? I
actually
personally,
no, because I actually am interested in reading Dark Victory now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I personally don't like it. I think it's one of those things that it's got that sort of chosen one vibe to it, to me. And I haven't read Dark Victory in a while. But I don't like it. But there is it makes sense in the story. I still don't like it.
I didn't have any problem with it if we're evaluating that relationship from the perspective of the Long Halloween. It's not an answered question. But it's not, for me, it just serves to add to the stack of things that Batman has to consider and who can he trust and not trust. And I just assumed that was played for that. But obviously, there's more to say with that when you get into Dark Victory and beyond.
I do like it in Dark Victory for the exact reason Sean said.
I'm curious if it explains the scratch marks on Falcone's face, because that opens the book, and then Sophia gets it as well. It becomes like thematic.
That was in year 1, I believe.
Oh, is that a carryover from year 1?
I believe the scratch happens in year 1, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Atomic Hound says, for me, the best movie portrayal based on the characters here was Gary Oldman's Jim Gordon. I can't separate them at all. Thoughts? Yes, major. I couldn't stop thinking about not only him, but Aaron Eckhart, who played Harvey Two-Face, because I was thinking like, man, he was so that was such a boisterous performance that he put on in that movie. And you can definitely see it here. I think he extrapolated a lot. But you can see where he got the inspiration from, for sure. Absolutely. And Christian Bale has said that he kept a copy of Dark Victory on his nightstand by his bed in the trailer. And that's where he got his personality for Bruce from.
Okay.
Like through osmosis, or who was reading it? Actor types are weird, so... I love Gary. Gary Oldman's one of my favorite actors of all time. So, yeah.
For me, it's all animated series. Like I hear it all in the animated series. So Bob Hastings, Kevin Conroy, and not. Oh, who is it? I don't remember.
If you don't know it, we're not going to know it.
I thought it was Lando. But he was supposed to be Two-Face.
Billy D. Williams? No, he was supposed to be Two-Face in the Burtonverse.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think Two-Face in the animated series wasn't as well known.
He actually just died like last week. The actor who played him. I forget the name, but yeah, he did just die.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Rob F had a question. Have the creators hinted that they have a definitive answer have the creators hinted that they have a definitive answer, or that they also see it as multiple choice?
Not to my knowledge. And again, to me, while there is the ability to debate, I do feel like I feel like it's explicit that at least Gilda and Alberto were definitely doing this. Whether or not Harvey, not Two-Face, but like Harvey before Two-Face came, whether or not he was involved, I do think is more open-ended.
The only thing that's definitive is that Gilda did do the killings at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Post New Year's is where it gets murky. And I think in the Long Halloween special that came out 2 years ago, 2 years ago, Calendar Man confirms it. He's like, I knew Gilda was. He actually is hunting her in that, from what I remember.
He's also not the only person who figures out that it's a woman.
Yeah.
In the film?
In the Long Halloween comic, they realized because the gun is a small gun that it must be a woman that's using it.
Oh, right.
And it's also the same gun that Harvey uses throughout the book. So
yeah,
little things like that I love about it.
We had a question from Gilmer Eric Smith, who said, any ideas for the next book club? So first of all, thank you for asking. Now, the way that we choose the book clubs is we all get a pick, although by normal rules, whoever's pick is picked, they don't get a follow-up one so I should be eliminated. But this all goes down on Patreon. Our patrons get to vote between our options as to what the next book club will be. And then the one that wins is the one that we do a presentation on. So this time, our patrons decided that they wanted us to talk about the Long Halloween. Thank you for voting. We really appreciate everybody that does that over on patreon.com/thecomicspals.
And I think Long Halloween winning was just serendipitous. It was like, wait, we can do this live right near Halloween.
Yeah.
Things just kind of came together.
Yeah.
Also, just people fucking love this book.
No, guys, we planned this out. We that's what we do. We plan these out with foresight, and that's what it was.
Should we announce what the options will be, Sean, or do we solidify that?
So, if I'm disqualified, then we're good to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Atomic Hound says, are book clubs live going forward? Yes, they are. That is the plan going forward, is to do these things live. Hopefully you guys enjoy the live experience. We're not done, by the way. We still want to get through more of your questions. We got a little bit more time. But hopefully you guys enjoy the live experience, and this can be the way forward. So Tyler, do you want to announce the books?
Yeah, so we have 3 options this go around. So one of the options is Flex Mentallo by Grant Morrison. Is that Frank Quitely as well, Kel?
You know it is, baby.
Yeah. So Flex Mentallo by Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely. That's Kale's pick. My pick is Sin City Volume 2, A Dame to Kill For by Frank Miller. Probably the Sin City story. And then Marco picked a fellow Mark with Mark Wade's Empire, and also Empire Uprising, which is a continuation of it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Where is that? What's that published from?
It started with like Guerrilla Comics or something, then got moved to DC, then like IDW.
One of those creator-owned ones that just flip-flops between big two sometimes. Yeah.
And it exists outside of the DC universe, although technically it was published by them. But so it's a thing.
So those are the options. They'll be posted tomorrow. And you guys can vote on patreon.com/thecomicspals. If you're not already on there, there's a lot of great stuff. I think our audience would speak to, those of you who have decided to join us over there, would speak to the amount that we put into making sure that it's fun. And this is just one of the perks, getting to choose or be a part of choosing what we read for the book club. Let's hit a couple more comments and questions if we can. Dan Trudeau says, this has been fun. I was burned out on Batman for years, and this got me to go back and enjoy him as a character again. That's awesome. Between this and the countdowns that we've been doing on the main show, we have been doing a lot of Batman talk, and I think I've noticed an upswing in people going back and rereading Batman stuff that is not even necessarily a part of the conversation that we've been having, but you guys have really made this your thing as much as ours, and I'm so grateful for that. It's awesome.
So out of curiosity, before we started the show, I actually listened to my previous podcast, Long Box, with Matt Murphy on the show, just to see what my thoughts were 4 years ago on this book.
Did you cover this?
We did, yeah, and we didn't even talk about the book till like 30 minutes in. Mess of a show.
Sounds right.
But one of the things I always mention is, like, when it comes to like thinking of comics in collected formats, I think DC first every time.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a Marvel guy. Like I can name Batman: The Long Halloween. I can name, Superman for All Seasons, JLA, Tower of Babel. Whereas Marvel is such a much more weekly, monthly experience for me, like a ongoing experience. So that when you think about Batman, like Batman is like, I can picture spines of Batman collections in my head. So I love reading these collected Batman stories.
Right, like Chris Claremont's X-Men. You got the 70s,
Sure.
the 80s, and the 90s.
Days of Future Past is 2 issues? Like that doesn't really count,
Yeah. We got a comment from Catherine Stars. Love the live experience always. It's preferred. Thank you very much. Love the engagement. Still watch things I miss or recorded, but live is always best. Yeah, appreciate that.
Amin Perez said, this book has aged fantastically. I have nothing against those stories, but Venom, Prey, and even Year 2 are hard to read nowadays. And that's something that I have struggled with as a lover of Batman, has been that some of that stuff is tough to get to and get through. Whereas this is smooth, and Year 1 is smooth. And there's a reason why the books that are on the upper echelon of the ones that we talk about when we talk about Batman are those books. And the ones that are from, before the 2000s, a big reason why they are talked about is because of how much they stand up above everything else that was coming out at that time. This doesn't feel like an old book. It's not written like an old book. If you took the script and the art of this book and you put the same book out now today, it would be great.
Tom King and Doc Shaner.
It's timeless. It's timeless.
No, Marco.
What do you mean? He's our modern mystery man. He does it in 12 to 13 issues, and then you want a slightly cartoony but well shaded art, Doc Shaner.
I forget them. I'm talking about these exact two people, this exact same creative effort. This works in any era of comics.
We got a question from Gilmer. He says, "Why do you think the Joker cares about Holiday?" When Joker's introduced in issue 3, I feel like I don't know if he's
Attention.
Yeah, exactly.
He's my cat when I'm watching TV. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
He's angry for the attention being taken away from him, the same way that Alberto is angry that he can't get the attention.
Right.
Yep.
There's just so many interesting things going on in this.
I have a question, if it's okay to throw out there.
Yeah.
Is this your favorite Jeff Loeb book?
No.
I know we talked about Tim Sale, possibly, best Tim Sale, but best Jeff Loeb. Like, I know you're a fan of his Red Hulk run.
I'm seeing red.
No, Spider-Man Blue for me.
I think I might agree with that. That made me cry, so.
Rob F said, "Love this book, but I'm excited for filmmakers to move past it and look at other books because both Nolan and Reeves took elements from it." Yes, they did. I think it's hard to look past, but the fact that this book is rooted in the early days of Batman means that whenever a creator is thinking about the early days of Batman, they're going to look to this source material. So, and frankly, I'm not tired of seeing these elements. I just want to see other elements. Hopefully with Matt Reeves, the Batman 2, we can do a whole bunch of other cool things. But this is well-worn territory.
But frankly, we're never going to see that because they're never going to move past it. So
the one time that somebody took a different inspiration was through Miller's stuff, and then we got Batfleck. So,
sorry. That's what happens when
somebody take inspiration from Morrison. Come on.
That's what happens when we're given nice things.
Right. Any other comments or questions we need to get to? Spider-Man Blue for me. Okay, so I'm impressed choosing Spider-Man Blue as the best Jeff Loeb.
Matt says Ultimates.
Oh my god. You know what? I know that Marco doesn't.
I don't.
I know that you don't. That's so funny.
My man is cheering for Jeff Loeb's breakdown the same way I was cheering for Frank Miller's breakdown about 9/11.
Wow. Well, now that 9/11 has come up, I think it's time for us to wrap.
We're not even talking about
land the plane. I mean,
wow. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate everybody who came out and watched this live. We really wanted this to be special for our first ever live book club, and I think it was. Thank you guys so much for your questions throughout and your enthusiasm and engagement. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this conversation. If you did, there are a ton of ways that you can support the show. As you know, in the chat, we had so many of our channel members. You guys are fantastic. Whether you're a sidekick or a VI pal, those are two separate tiers. So we appreciate every single one of you just the same. Also, thank you to our patrons who make everything that we do here possible. Y'all are phenomenal. Thank you for showing up for us to talk about an amazing book. Hopefully you will vote for our next book, and we can make that just as special, if not more special. We look forward to doing this with you more. Stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll be back. We are the Comics Pals signing off. Until then, take care, guys.
October, November,